We spend so much of our lives grinding away, trying to build our skills, climb that ladder, and basically prove our worth to the world. But what if the very foundation of how we view our own abilities is entirely backward? Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going on a really intimate journey into what we call the sacred cycle of talent. And we'll also be diving into the harsh, kind of paradoxical reality of how the world actually judges that talent.
So, consider this for a second. What if your absolute greatest abilities were never actually yours to keep? I know, it sounds crazy, right? We live in this culture that just constantly screams, I earned this, I built this. But what if we shifted our perspective away from personal pride and instead placed it squarely onto responsibility? It completely reframes our life's work. It's no longer about hoarding a collection of trophies. Instead, it's about managing a sacred loan that we've been given temporarily.
And honestly, nobody articulated this better than Dr. Leo Buscaglia. He was this incredibly beloved professor at USC back in the late 60s and 70s. Get this, after the tragic loss of a student, he started a non-credit class simply called Love 1A, and it totally blew up. It became a campus phenomenon. As a World War II veteran who literally helped reconstruct shattered faces in a military hospital, the man deeply understood the fragility of life. His core philosophy, which was born right out of that fragility, was just beautiful and simple. Our unique abilities are unearned gifts. And because they're gifts, well, they demand a response. To him, love was an action. Sharing your talent, that is the action.
We actually see this exact same grounding wisdom echoed by Papa Q-Bear. He used to tell his son, the author of our newsletter, Papa, he'd say, "Sonny boy, God gave you a talent. Find it and use it to bring him glory." And that right there is the absolute crucial point. God determines our latent talents. Finding them, well, that's a quest. But using them to serve others, that is a lifelong, daily journey of taking that sacred spark and fanning it into a massive flame.
Now, all of that sounds really beautiful, right? Just share your gifts. But here is where we slam right into the friction of the real world. Because society constantly judges us on superficial appearances. Enter what we call the surgeon paradox. This is a completely brilliant concept by the thinker Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and he warns us about this massive glitch in our human brains. We just so easily confuse a highly polished, convincing look with deep-rooted actual competence.
Okay, imagine you're at a hospital and you have to choose between two surgeons of the exact same rank. On one side, you have the central casting surgeon. You know the type, silver hair, impeccably dressed, a super measured, calming voice. Then, on the other side, you have a surgeon who is maybe overweight, a little unkempt, and speaks really roughly. Taleb boldly suggests you should absolutely pick the second one. Why? Because to reach the exact same rank as the polished doctor, that unkempt surgeon had to possess undeniable, overwhelming skill to overcome the immense disadvantage of how they look.
You see, the human mind is just naturally drawn to shiny surfaces. A highly polished exterior might just mean someone had a great upbringing, or they just perfectly fit a societal stereotype. But a rougher exterior, that often hides incredible resilience. They literally had to fight their way through a rising tide of bias. Now, obviously, we shouldn't blindly assume the messiest person in the room is always the best. But the takeaway here is that appearance should be treated as a clue, not a final verdict. The safest judgment always relies on tested results, not on costumes.
But let's say you do overcome all those biases. You use your talent, you work incredibly hard, and boom, you reach the peak. You've totally made it, right? Well, welcome to the high performer paradox. Earning star status means your routine, everyday successes suddenly start to feel completely ordinary to everyone watching you. To get any recognition at all, you have to continually make these giant, massive leaps. The spotlight you worked so hard to earn is now literally burning you.
And the dark side of that spotlight is just ruthless. Think about the sting of a mistake. If an average performer makes a routine misstep, it barely even registers. People just brush it off as expected weather. But if you, the high performer, make that exact same inevitably human mistake, man, lightning strikes. You are measured against this absolutely brutal standard, and a simple shortfall feels to the crowd like a totally broken promise.
So, when that spotlight is burning and the expectations feel crippling, we can actually anchor ourselves in a really comforting reminder from Papa Q-Bear. He always said, "The cream always rises." When things go wrong, and let's be real, in this world they absolutely will, true talent perseveres. You don't just sit around relying on a sudden flash of inspiration. Nope, you rely on perspiration. You pick up the shovel and you work your way out of it.
So how do we practically survive these crazy worldly paradoxes while still honoring our sacred talents? Well, we can basically boil it down to 3 daily survival steps. Number 1, discover the gift. Number 2, manage the spotlight by showing your work. And number 3, look the part by polishing the apple. Let's dive into how those last 2 actually become your daily armor in a really biased world. All right, step 2, manage the spotlight. High performers simply must show their work. Look, observers love results because they're super easy to see, right? Like a score on a scoreboard. But results completely erase the luck, the timing, and all the grueling late-night choices you made. By pulling back the curtain and letting people actually see the gears turning in your process, you shield yourself from unfair results-only criticism. You aren't making excuses, you're just providing a much fairer foundation for people to judge you on.
And finally, step 3, polish the apple. Papa gives us some highly practical advice here, which perfectly complements the kind of discipline emphasized by his spouse, Colonel Debs. Look, the surgeon paradox proves that appearance isn't everything, sure, but humans are still highly visual creatures, constantly looking for safe harbors. If you are out there selling apples, you better make sure they shine. Making that extra effort to present yourself well shows people you have focus in the tiny details. And remember, if you are a leader, you never get a play off. You simply must look sharp for your team.
So let's weave all these threads together. Your talents, they are a sacred loan, a gift meant to be returned to the world through service. And as you serve, just remember that while appearance is definitely not a proxy for true competence, you still have to navigate a world that judges by it. The higher you climb, the brighter and hotter that spotlight burns. So you have to protect your gift, show your work to manage those expectations, and polish your apple to ease the friction of human bias. Navigating these paradoxes, the totally unfair judgments, the burning pressure, it is really hard work. But I promise you, it is entirely worth it. Because ultimately, your scorecard isn't the world's approval. It's divine. Like Leo Buscaglia reminds us, only you can actualize your uniqueness. And once you do, your primary duty is not to hoard it away. It's to give it away. To create joy, to help people, and to bring hope. Which brings us right back to where we began, but hopefully with a brand new lens on our daily grind. Your latent talent is sitting right there, just waiting to be fully realized. The world is always going to be complex, biased, and contradictory. But your mission here is actually quite simple. Take a hard look at the skills you've been loaned and ask yourself, how will you wrap your gift back to God today?